Today we'll take some time to get acquainted with the new CEO of the Indianapolis Public Library, Jacqueline Nytes, and hear some of her thoughts on the future of the library. Many of you may know Jackie from her recent tenure as Indianapolis City County Councilor and Executive Director of the Mapleton Fall Creek Development Association. But before that, Jackie actually served as an Associate Director and Chief Financial Officer here at the library. So Jackie, welcome back to the library. How does it feel to be back at the Indianapolis Library?
Well, John, it feels wonderful. Sometimes we're lucky and we get to come home again, despite what they wrote. And I feel like I've come home, and the welcome's been wonderful.
What has been your impression over the last decade or so since you were last here at the library of how the library has changed, and looking at it from the outside, perhaps how the role of the library has changed, if any, here in the community?
Well, lots of things have changed. Sometimes it's things as simple as the logo, which is different than it was when I was here before. And yet, even with that, there are things that are very much the same. You know, we still do wonderful story hours for children. We still offer a lot of materials, printed materials for people. So we've got things that are the same. We still have wonderful locations scattered throughout the county, which is great. But we've also got some new things that didn't even exist when I was here before. Some new services, some new ways to access materials. So things have changed while they've remained the same.
Of course, one of the front burner issues over the last year or so has been the question of the reduction of hours at our branches throughout the system as a result of budget considerations. Where do you see that question going, at least in the near term?
Sure. Important question right now, in fact, very high on my list of tasks. I've promised the Board of Directors a recommendation at their March meeting on what we can do to restore hours. And it's important to note that this problem isn't unique to Indianapolis. Libraries across the country have been faced with this in the last year as the economy has affected tax revenues for lots of libraries, and as it did here. So we've been blessed. It was one of the things that I was very fortunate to be part of when I was away from the library, was to involve the community in that conversation about, were we willing as a city to pay a little more for library service so we could have some of those hours back. And this community and the City County Council, I think, gave the library board a resounding yes. They want to do that. So we're hard at work right now analyzing the data and the traffic patterns and understanding what the community's needs are so that we can come up with the best recommendation.
Very good. Of course, we're standing here at the Library Services Center in the processing section, where all the books and hard materials are processed and sent on to the branches, which brings up the common question of today, the future of books in this electronic and digital age. What do you see?
Well, there is a future, absolutely, and the future is still bright. It's kind of interesting to think about the fact that out of our 14 million items that we circulated this last year, 65% of those were printed books, the kind you see around you right here, right now, that are getting ready to go out to the different agencies. At the same time, things are changing. I can read a book on this if I want to, and on lots of other devices, and we're doing that too, but the book has got a long life yet, there's no doubt about it, and part of that's because our society includes a really diverse range of people, some of whom are not comfortable reading on these kinds of devices, and there are still materials that are not available on these kinds of devices, and so for a while here we're going to have a foot in both worlds.
Yes.
And I think it's going to be a long while, actually.
Well, your possession of that here on camera tells me that you fall somewhere on the high end of the spectrum of engaging this new technology, e-readers and smartphones. Are you a frequent user of those?
Well, I've got a smartphone. And I've got an iPad. Now, I would not say I'm on the high range. I'd say I'm just right over the halfway point, as a matter of fact. And like so many,
dragged into the 21st century.
Absolutely. And like so many of my generation, it's my son who had to help me get a little bit more comfortable about all of these things. That's not unusual for us to turn to those younger family members and say, okay, I know I got to get there. Help me figure this all out. And I'm making progress. You know, I'm learning how to tweet, and I've got a couple of city councilors who are actually pretty good about that, and it became a little bit of a teach each other kind of session. But it is part of our future. This is a delivery mechanism for information in the future, and we're all going to find a day when this is what we're going to use.
Well, in fact, the library, even though we still tout our vast collection of books and hard materials, we're having a lot of classes now and teaching people how to download ebooks. So
We are,
part of that learning curve, I suppose, is teaching the staff how to use them too.
It is, and training the staff is one of the goals that I hold very important for the next few years. The staff has so many different aspects of the information industry that they've got to be really good at. And we need to recognize how much training's got to be part of our daily schedule. We've got to have those opportunities. We can't help the public if we're not strong and comfortable ourselves.
Right. Well, I know in talking with you already that one of your goals is to make sure the library connects strongly with the community. How important is it for the library to maintain its relevance in the community to do that?
We have to continually circle back around and understand what the community needs. If they need recreational materials, if they need informational materials, if they need places to convene, if they need a place to research materials, to create materials, whatever it is, we've got to constantly be checking back out there to see what their needs are and determine if we're the right organization to fill them. Is it appropriate? Is our mission still on target to meet those needs?
Okay.
And to do that, we'll do things like the I Love Our Libraries tour that I'm embarking on this month. We will go out to every single branch library in the month of February and have a conversation with neighbors around each of those branches, users of those branches, and find out what is their most important desire from that library in terms of hours and services, and then that'll help us shape our plans going forward.
Very good. Well, Jackie, you come from fighting the good fight on the political level here in Indianapolis to administering the public library. How much of an adjustment or a readjustment is this for you, and how your life is being changed?
Well, life is a little different. I had a Monday off this week, which I haven't had a Monday evening off in almost 12 years since of the city council meetings, and it was a little strange to watch it on television and not actually be part of that discussion. So there's always a sweet sorrow when you leave something that you enjoy doing, but the public library is very much about serving the community. And in that sense, it's not any different. It's just playing in a different game, but still about serving the community.
And in terms of people being able to make their comments and suggestions to you, I'm sure you are welcoming that. How can they do that?
In fact, I've been kind of surprised at the number of Dear CEO emails that I get on a regular basis. I've gotten several every single day I've been here, and I'm hurrying to try to answer them in a reasonable period of time and to learn enough to answer them intelligently. But I encourage people to go onto the library's website and send me their thoughts or their concerns and their recommendations for things. If they're not comfortable doing that electronically and they're visiting any of the branches, they can always get a paper copy of that same form to share their thoughts and ideas with us.
Good. Anything else you'd like to add as we close?
Well, I just think it's so exciting to recognize the wonderful role that our libraries play in our communities. For so many of our communities, it's a gathering place. In some of our neighborhoods, it might be one of the strongest institutions that's present there in that neighborhood. And then in some of our other neighborhoods that have a rich array of institutions, it still may be one of the busiest ones in that neighborhood. And so there's a wonderful role for the library here in this community in meeting people's needs, and I'm really excited to have a chance to help do that.
And we're excited to work with you toward that goal, and welcome aboard again Jackie Nytes, the new CEO of the Indianapolis Public Library. Again, our website, www.imcpl.org, for any information relative to the library and to contact Jackie.
Dear CEO.
Yes, indeed. So please check that out, and we look forward to chatting with you in the future.